If you own an RV park, you know that electricity is one of the greatest operating expenses. Today I'm going to walk you through on how to install your own electric meters that'll end up paying for themselves after 1 month of use. For this video, we're going to install the pedestal, and then on a later date we'll install the meter and wrap up the project. I'll make sure to take all the different tools and parts, put them in the comments below. That way if you have any questions, you'll be able to reference it at a later date. The one thing I recommend is taking a piece of wood and propping up the front cover on your pedestal. That's because the hinges wear on those things sometimes and it'll just keep dropping back down on you. Also, I'm using an 8mm socket to take out the 2 screws that hold that front cover on. That way you'll be able to get to the wiring behind. Now for your reference, this is a Midwest electric pedestal that we're doing the work on. But for the most part, most pedestals are very similar, so you'll be able to follow along for this piece of the project. And then if it gets a little bit too complicated, you could always reference back to your original pedestal and see if that helps you as well. Now before we start the install, we got to do a little prep work. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it right here. These 2 wires go down to the loop lug that then connect to your main electrical source coming into the pedestal. If you're doing the project all in one day from front to back install the meter, you can just go ahead and remove these 2 wires because you're going to have to replace them with longer wires that can then reach up into the pedestal and come back down. If you're not doing it all in one day and you're just installing the base, go ahead and just leave them there. And then what you can do is you can tuck a little bit of trash or a piece of wood or something that's going to stop your drill from hitting those wires whenever you end up coming back down. For me, I use trash. So now let's get into measuring and marking what are going to be the holes on the top of the pedestal. You can see that my pedestal here is 9.5 inches wide, and that's pretty standard. Now we're going to look at the depth. Mine's 4.5 inches, but they do have a shallower version at 3.5 inches. So in order to get center, you're going to take 4 3/4 from the side and then 1 inch from the back, and you're going to mark an X. After you mark that X, you're going to take your pedestal and you're going to center the hole in the pedestal over that X. Then take a pencil and mark the 4 holes that you see here that you'll pre-drill for the screws that will be going into the top of the pedestal. For drilling, you're going to need 2 different bits. Here you can see I'm using a titanium 1/8 inch bit by Milwaukee. I'm going to use that to pre-drill the 4 holes that are going to end up installing the screws into. I am using self-drilling screws. They're number 10, 1 inch long. So technically you don't need to do this part, but I find that whenever you're doing so, it helps guide the screws into position a lot easier. And guys, if you like my videos, please take a moment to like the video and also subscribe to the channel so you'll get notified whenever new content's released. As we're wrapping up this 4th hole, we're going to go ahead and start prepping for the hole that we're going to be drilling for the wires to be run through. What I'm doing now is I'm spraying a little WD-40 on the X where I'm going to be drilling the hole. I'm going to take my 1.5 inch drill bit, put it on the center of the X, and I'm going to slowly start drilling. Now as you're drilling, you're going to see that you're going to need to continue to reapply oil. The reason that you need to do this is to reduce the friction that'll quickly tear your bit up. I have a total of 12 different pedestals that I need to drill, so I need to make sure that this bit lasts me the entire job. So as a general rule of thumb, whenever you're drilling, if you start to see smoke being produced, you need to add more oil. Drill, add oil, drill, add oil. Can't stress it enough because it 100% will save your bit. Once I drill through the top, you can see that I hit the trash. If that trash wouldn't be there, once again, there's the possibility that I could have hit those wires. So that's why I always just stuff a little something in there to make sure that those wires remain intact and I don't potentially damage them, especially since I'm doing this in 2 different stages. Now I'm going to take the top, wipe it off, clean it off before I decide to set the pedestal down here and finish my mounting of it. Finally, it's time to wrap up the project and install the pedestal. I'm going to go ahead and grab my electric wrench along with those number 10 1 inch self-drilling screws, grab my pedestal, and start making the connection. Now a couple things that I want to make sure that I point out to you here is don't torque down the very first one that you end up inserting, because then it'll make it tough to adjust or move around the pedestal whenever you're installing the other 3. After you get all 4 of them in there, then you can go back and you can finally tighten them all down so that it's nice and snug whenever you're complete. And one more friendly reminder, folks, please make sure that before you start the project, you do shut off the electricity running to your pedestal. That way you make sure that you don't run the risk of getting electrocuted, especially if you were to drill through the top of the pedestal and hit those 2 wires that I showed you earlier in the video. All right, the final touch. Now the only other thing that we have to do is put the cap on top of the pedestal, screw it in, and then this job is done. Alright guys, and I'll make sure to add all the tools and the parts in the comments below so that you can reference back to them should you decide to install a meter pedestal as well. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Please make sure that you go in and subscribe and like my video. Thanks again, and good luck on your next project.